Attendees.com, your go-to resource for U.S. immigration insights. We provide clear immigration news and information. Our platform provides a network of licensed attorneys who can answer your questions and guide you through the process. From visas to green cards, asylums to citizenships, ImmigrationQuestion.com helps you to network with immigration attorneys so that you can move forward with confidence. Sign up today or download the app. Free registration, limited time offer. Stay tuned. We go live in 30 seconds.
Hello everyone and welcome to this special edition webinar hosted by ImmigrationQuestion.com, a networking platform and meeting ground where immigrants, families, advocates, and licensed immigration attorneys come together to understand U.S. immigration policies and procedures better. My name is GB Sutusa and I'll be your host for today's important discussion, understanding non-immigrant visas, choosing the right visa for your purpose and goals. Now, every year, thousands of people come to the United States for a variety of reasons. US visas generally fall into two broad categories: immigrant visas, which are intended for individuals seeking permanent residence, and non immigrant visas, which are designed for temporary stays in the United States. Within the non immigrant category, factors such as intended activities, length of stay, future and eligibility requirements can all influence which visa option may be the best or most suitable for you. Now, to help us break things down, we're honored to be joined by attorney Wendy Barlow, a New York-based immigration attorney who helps clients handle their immigration processes and overcome barriers to achieve their goals. She provides hands-on guidance across a wide range of immigration matters, making sure clients understand their options and have the support needed throughout the process. Attorney Barlow, thank you so much for joining us today. We're thrilled to have you for this important discussion.
Thank you for having me. It's great to be here.
Before we begin, a quick reminder to our audience, ImmigrationQuestion.com is a public educational and networking platform. The information shared today is for general informational purposes only and does not constitute individualized legal advice. If you're joining us on Facebook, YouTube, LinkedIn, or any other platform, welcome. Please do share this session and subscribe with anyone who may benefit from learning about non-immigrant visa options in the United States. Let's dive right in. Attorney Barlow, what are the most common non-immigrant visa types people apply for today?
I'd have to say that's probably B1, B2, which is a visitor visa or a tourist visa. That's designed to come for a short visit. You'll be allowed up to 6 months in the U.S., and you can come for business purposes or pleasure. Business purposes are not work. That's things like to attend conferences, business meetings, possibly participate in some training, but it's not to come here and do actual work. The next one would probably be H-1B, which is a non-immigrant work visa. That is for individuals who are professionals, meaning they have a bachelor's degree or higher in a field that is related to the actual job they're going to hold. From there, probably L1, both A and B. That's for intercompany transferees. So if you worked overseas for a corporation that has an office or affiliate or branch here in the U.S., they can transfer you here to work either as in a managerial or executive capacity or as someone with specialized knowledge. I think lastly, for non-immigrant, the ones I'm seeing the most are either O1, which is extraordinary ability visas for individuals in business, sciences, education, or the arts. That is also a work visa. And then E2 and some E1, which are investor or trade visas. Those require our country and your country to have a reciprocal treaty. and then you can come here either to engage in international trade or um, most commonly what I deal with is individuals who are coming to here. They want to set up a company here in the U.S. and to be able to work for it.
All right.
So investment.
All right.
There's a lot of other visas, but those seem to be the top ones we're dealing with right now.
Okay. Now, Attorney, what factors should applicants consider when selecting the right non-immigrant visa for their purpose?
First and foremost is what is your purpose? I mean, I know it sounds simple, but it's not always simple. If you just need to come here for you want to take the kids to Disneyland, then you need a tourist visa or visitor visa. If you want to come to study, whether that is like a full associate, bachelor, or master's or PhD program, you're going to need an F1 student visa. You can't come here to the US on a tourist visa and study. You can do some like certification classes, but not like an actual academic program.
Yeah.
If you're coming to train, you need a J1 visa. You want to be a trainee. So the starting point is your purpose. What are you coming here for? And then you figure out, okay, which one's appropriate. So if you want to work, there's a whole bunch of work visas. So then the next thing is, do you have an employer who's going to sponsor you? Okay. Do you have a degree? What kind of work is it? And then you go from there and figure out what is the best suited one. And if you're confused because there are a lot of visas and how they work and do you need a sponsor or not, the next best thing would be to speak to an attorney about your circumstances, what you want to do and things. And we can point you to what is the appropriate visa or visa options. Because sometimes people have more than one option available.
Yeah. Now, can you please explain the non-immigrant intent requirements and how it affects visa eligibility?
Okay, so with almost all non-immigrant visas, I say almost all because H-1B and L-1, both A and B, specifically have what's called dual intent, which means you can be an immigrant and a non-immigrant at the same time. I know it doesn't really make sense, but it's allowed. Short of that, for all other non-immigrant visas, you have to have non-immigrant intent. That means you're not intending to come here and overstay or change your status or adjust your status. You're coming here for a temporary reason, whether that's for a vacation, school, employment. Like if let's say you're an artist and there's a performance that you've been hired to do, whether that be like on Broadway or you have a contract to perform so many concerts. You're coming for that purpose. And at the end of the day, when your time is up, you're going to leave the US. And they look at things like, what are your ties outside the country? For example, do you have a job overseas? If you're applying for a visitor visa, that is a number one thing they look for. Are you do you have property? And that can be like real property, like a house, but it also can be leases can also work too, especially if it's a long-term lease. But it's also things like assets, owning a business, having bank accounts. They're looking at those things. They'll also look at your family ties, both in your home country and the US. Obviously, if you have immediate relatives, such as a spouse who's a US citizen, or even a green card holder, or a child who is 21 or older, they may be more suspect about why you're coming. Are you coming to bypass the immigrant process? Also, if you're coming and you're telling the consulate, I want to come for an extended period of time, I'm bringing my whole family, that can also raise red flags. Most people, like if you're applying for a visitor visa, most people, I'm not saying they're going to be here for a week or two. They may be here a little longer, depending. But you can't afford to not be working for 6 months. I'm saying most people. I know there are people out there who can, but the majority of the people they can't come here for 6 months without working. So if you're coming here for 6 months with your whole entire family and no plans regarding employment, that's going to raise a red flag too. Um, so they're going to look at your background essentially.
Yeah. Now, Attorney, how does dual intent work, and which visa categories allow it?
Okay, so dual intent is clearly written into the H-1B and the L-1, both A and B visas. Dual intent essentially allows you to come on a non-immigrant visa, but with the intention that you will potentially stay permanently. So a lot of individuals who are on H-1B, it's a non-immigrant visa, but their employers are sponsoring them long-term for a green card. Same with the intercompany transferees. So it allows you to be able to use this visa, come and work for, 3 or more years
Yeah.
here. You have to do some extensions, but 3 or more years here. At the same time, you also can do these extensions and stuff while having an employment based case going on. You don't have to have that strict, I will return at the end of my time, is the easiest way to say it.
All right. Now, what types of documentation are most important when applying for a non-immigrant visa?
So part of that's going to depend on the type of visa, but
Yeah.
generally speaking, for purposes of applying for any visa, you need a valid passport that is going to be valid for at least 6 months, preferably longer. Um, you're going to need things like bank statements to show your ability to fund your travel. You're going to need things, or if you're doing like a student visa, your ability to pay for your classes, your housing, things like that. If you're coming, if you're coming for like let's say you're coming to the U.S. on vacation because someone's graduate, like you have a kid graduating maybe, so you're coming here on a B1, B2 to visit for the graduation, and then while you're here, you're going to see some other family, and maybe there's a wedding. Copy of the wedding invitation, a copy of the proof that your child's graduating. That can be, it doesn't have to be a formal invitation, but usually you can print out from the school's web page the graduation information and then show your child goes there. If you're applying for a student visa, you're going to need a DS 2019 from the school you're going to, where they fill out information about the program, your participation. If you're coming on employment visas, then you may need an approved petition ahead of time. Um, for example, O visas, H-1B, L-1A, except for L-1s for Canada, pretty much everybody else has to have a already approved petition. But you still have to bring documents that like an offer letter. If you've already been working for the company and you're getting a renewal of your visa, you know, maybe your W-2 and your most recent pay stubs to show that you are still working for that company. So again, it really depends
All right.
what visa you're applying for.
Wonderful. All right. Now, Attorney, can a non-immigrant visa be used as a pathway to permanent residency?
So there is no direct paths between direct non-immigrant visas and a green card. As we said about the dual intent, obviously you can be here working on an H-1B or an L-1 or any of the multitude of employment-based visas we have, and an employer could want to keep you here. Or maybe you have the ability to self-petition. You have extraordinary ability in your field, or you're um, a member of the professions holding a master, advanced degree, typically a master's or higher, or a bachelor's plus at least 5 years of progressive experience in your field. And you're coming here to do something that's in the national interest of the United States. You could potentially self petition for yourself. So there are paths, but it's not like, oh, if you have a B1, B2 visa for so long, they'll give you the opportunity to have a green card. No. Usually you have an employer sponsor you. Another common thing is students. someone who's in a bachelor's program, or maybe they're on to their master's or PhD. Sometimes they meet people while they're here. They fall in love, they end up married, and now they're getting their green card through marriage. But as a general rule, though, aside from, like I said, the H-1B and the L visas, if you're coming here with a non-immigrant visa, you should not be, especially with this administration and the like different crackdowns they have been doing on adjustment of status. You really need to be, I'm coming here for my temporary purpose and I will leave. If you try to, you're engaged to a US citizen, and instead of having them do the fiance visa or get married and do the marriage through consular processing, I'm just going to enter on my tourist visa, we'll get married and then we'll file. That's not a good idea, because you can get hit with fraud or material misrepresentation, because at your entry, you had no intention to depart. And they don't have to ask you a single question. Just simply presenting a visitor visa is sufficient to say, I'm coming temporarily. So if that is your situation where you do want a long-term status here, really talk to an attorney before you try to do anything to bypass the system.
Yeah. Thank you for those insights, Attorney Barlow. For everyone watching, this conversation about non-immigrant visas is intended to shed light on an area of immigration law that often causes confusion for applicants and their families. Now, with so many visa categories being available, choosing the right option requires careful consideration of individual circumstances and long term objectives. Access to accurate information can help individuals make more informed decisions as they attempt opportunities in the United States. If this is your first time joining us, welcome. ImmigrationQuestion.com is a networking platform and meeting ground where users can ask immigration related questions at no cost and engage with participating attorneys. We're also proud to share that ImmigrationQuestion.com is Triple B accredited and ISO certified. This reflects our commitment to accountability, transparency, community education, and security. Attorney Barlow, based on your experience, how does ImmigrationQuestion.com help immigrants and immigration attorneys like yourself?
It helps immigrants or non-immigrants as well, because we're talking about them today, get some information that is more reliable. The internet is fantastic. I use it every day. I use web-based platforms, but especially in the age of AI, ChatGPT, Gemini, Claude, whatever one's your favorite, you can get a lot of information, but it's not always right. I have actually had consultations with individuals who put information into ChatGPT and got an answer, and unfortunately it was wrong, because immigration law is so nuanced. One change of facts could change something dramatically. So platforms like Immigration Question, they let people ask questions, read questions others have, get information that may be helpful, listen to webinars like this where maybe they're considering it and they thought, oh, B1, B2 is what I want, but really I want to come long term, or I want to work. Let me talk to someone. And it also helps attorneys connect with individuals who do need assistance, and are maybe a little bit more serious about hiring an attorney. As much as I love what I do and I do love helping people, it is still also a business. And so, you want to connect with quality leads, and people who are looking for assistance. So it's mutually beneficial. The attorneys donate some time, I guess. And then at the same time, individuals get to ask questions and maybe get themselves pointed in the right direction and connecting with someone who's reputable.
Yeah. Thank you so much for those thoughts. Now, before we move into our live Q&A session, let's tackle this important question. What are some common misconceptions about non-immigrant visas that you believe applicants should clarify to avoid any misunderstandings?
Um, so I think best things to avoid any misunderstandings is first and foremost when you're filling out a visa application, make sure you're reading it carefully and answering those questions very carefully. I'll get into why that's important because it is. Um, if you've filed for visas in the past, make sure when you're filling out this new one that your information is consistent. When you get to the end of your visa application and you're about to submit it, you can print a copy of your visa application. You can print a physical one or you can just save it as a PDF, put it on your computer, and forget about it for now. Um, because one of the things that is happening, we are seeing now, both with future non immigrant visa applications, but also people who are now applying for green cards or things like that, with the advent of between digitization of files that USCIS has kept for, I mean, it used to be INS, but that they've kept for ages, and now they're digitized and they're combining them with the State Department records and FBI records and um, CBP and ICE records. So all these agency records that handle immigration are now being compiled into one place. And with the advent of AI that can help by putting in prompts, search for things and find where someone may have, maybe on a tourist application, they said they were married when they weren't because they thought it would strengthen their application. And now they're filing through for a green card through marriage. And it's like, hold on, weren't you married before? And then obviously they weren't. So they have to provide proof they weren't. And now they have a problem with fraud. The next thing is too is selecting your visa category carefully. You don't want to go applying for a tourist visa, a B1, let's say B1 visa. It's a business visa, visitor visa. If your purpose is not to come here to like go to a conference, if it's or to negotiate a contract, but you're going to come here because you want to build a business, that is not the right visa for you. And these things, visa denials add up. It doesn't bar you necessarily from getting a visa in the future, but every time you're denied, they don't forget about it. So if you're denied because of this and you go and file 3 months later, the first thing they're going to say is what's different now than before. Um, so, so it's good to know what you've said all through these different processes so you can explain what's different, or you make sure you get the right visa. And because fraud or misrepresentation finding permanent bar to any immigration benefit without a waiver. Waivers are strictly limited. There's waivers for non-immigrant visas, and then the immigrant visa, to get an immigrant visa or to become like a resident, the waiver is based on extreme hardship to a qualifying relative. A qualifying relative is a parent or spouse who is a U.S. citizen or resident. Nobody else. No aunts, no uncles, no grandmas, no kids. They're not qualifying relatives. So that means if you have a good paying job offer, you can't take advantage of it unless you have that qualifying relative. So it's just very important to make sure you are consistent, that you are always clear in your application,
Yeah,
uh, to avoid future problems. Because you may not be thinking about it now, but you don't know what's going to happen 10 years from now, and you don't want that coming back to you.
true,
So,
true. If you're just joining us, we've been speaking with immigration attorney Wendy Barlow on understanding non-immigrant visas, choosing the right visa for your purpose and goals. We are now moving into our live Q&A session. This is your opportunity to ask general questions and hear educational insight from a licensed immigration attorney. Please drop those questions in the chat or call us live at 516-703-3483, and we'll take as many as time permits. All right. Amartya is asking, which US visa should I apply for if I want to work in the United States but do not have a green card?
there's a lot of different employment visas that would allow employment. popular one we talked about a little earlier was H-1B. That does require an employer to actually sponsor you for the visa. And you must also have a bachelor's degree or higher. The downside of that right now, and is unless your employer is what's called cap exempt, usually a nonprofit or an organization affiliated with a nonprofit doing research work, we've already met our annual cap because there's only so many a year. You would not be able to start that process until next year. So that's going to be hard. But if you have like extraordinary ability, you could look at an O visa. If you're a Canadian or Mexican citizen, you could also look at doing what's called a TN visa. It's very similar to the H-1B, except for it's a special. It's a visa created by, I'm going to say NAFTA. I know it's a new name, but it's still NAFTA to me. But with different agreements. If you're Australian, we have an E3 visa. That's again very similar to the H-1B and the TN, but it's limited to Australians. Other than that, if you're looking to come build your own business, you could look at an E visa. If you're a performing artist, then there's also the O visa, but you can also look at like a P visa. So it really depends on what kind of work you do and are you looking to go to work for someone? Are you looking to do your own thing?
Yeah. All right. Javier is asking, can I switch from a tourist visa to a student visa or work visa after arriving in the United States?
Yes, you can technically do what's called a change of status. It needs to be filed while you are in your current status. There are some limitations, like student visas. Obviously, how feasible it is to change is going to depend on the start date for your school. Most schools have very strict start dates because they're based on semesters. You could also do a work visa again. But the important thing is that any request to change status is filed before your current status expires. So if you were in the US and they gave you 6 months, you need to file it before then. The other thing is too to remember, just because you file a change of status, it doesn't mean your status has changed. So you cannot begin studies or working until you actually have the appropriate documentation. If you do, that's going to cause a lot of problems. I will warn individuals, though, you need to be very careful right now about change of status. There can be questions about what your intentions were when you entered the country, and you may be asked in an RFE to explain yourself, essentially. So just be very careful about change of status. I would really encourage people to talk to a lawyer before doing it nowadays.
Yeah. All right.
So
Uchechi is asking, which visa category is best for business owners?
So there's a couple that work for business owners. It depends on the structure of the business. But for example, if you have an overseas company and you're looking to expand into the US and open an affiliate or a branch or a subsidiary here, the L1A visa is one of the best ones. It doesn't have any caps. And while it doesn't have a direct path to a green card, there is a green card that is very similar that a lot of people end up doing. If you do not have an overseas business or you don't want to keep that business open, because sometimes people want to just, close that and come here and move the headquarters to the US, then an appropriate visa may be an E1 or an E2. E1 is for international trade. So if you're going to be doing trade with a treaty country. E2 is also a treaty visa, but that's for investment in the US. And that would allow you to come, create your entity, and then run it here in the US. As a business owner and stuff, if the business is in the US, you can also technically do an H-1B. you can actually own the whole company or own part of it now for H-1B. For years that had been a gray area, but it gets trickier down the road if you actually want a green card. So those are the big options. Also, O1, if you can reach the level of extraordinary ability, can also be used for business owners. I've done that as well.
All right. Thank you to everyone who joined us for today's special webinar edition. And thank you, Attorney Barlow, for sharing your knowledge and practical guidance with us today.
Thank you.
You can always visit immigrationquestion.com to ask immigration-related questions, stay informed about the policy updates, and register for upcoming live events. If you missed any part of today's important discussion with Attorney Barlow, the replay will be available on Spotify soon. Just search Borderless Talk by immigrationquestion.com. We look forward to seeing you on Wednesday at our next live session. Until then, stay informed, stay prepared, and stay connected. Bye-bye.